there was the highest amount of expired listings as well.
My last 2 deals that I closed were people moving from another state to Birmingham. So I almost feel like the locals are just being particular. They might be waiting, that if we see a drop in our interest rates, that we will definitely see that surge in the spring.
Welcome to the Beyond Wealth podcast, Abby Evans.
Hello.
It's been like a long time coming.
Yeah, I know. The longest time coming.
Longest coming.
Actually.
We have done, we were talking about it, and I honestly don't know how many deals we've done together. We both lived somewhat in the investor space as well as helping people buy and sell for retail homes. So we play in both areas, and we've done several deals together. Real estate besties. Yeah, because we're tight. And ever since we started doing deals, I think what I loved about doing a deal with you is we were always on the same page with logic and with thinking. And
agree.
That's honestly not the case for every agent, as much as I love working with lots of different personalities. Sometimes logic does not prevail in every deal, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could probably name a few off the top of my head.
Yeah. But that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
So I love that you're here. I appreciate your time. And I want to go over kind of July's stats, see what's happening in the market, kind of get what you're seeing in the market as well. But overall, it continues, broad scope, looking at the numbers, it continues to be so area specific.
Yeah, it
and
is.
I go back to, and I'm not just touting this because, it is, but having a good agent, having someone who knows the area and knows the market and can help you get a deal is so key in some of these pockets. So we're going to look at the broad scope, and then we'll dive in and talk about some specific areas. So here we go. So in July, in 2024, there was 14,144 listings. 2025, we had 15,382. So that's an 8.75% increase. And from what I've looked at stats-wise, I think I saw someone post the other day, and I wish I remember the numbers, but there was the highest amount of expired listings as well. So that's probably not even including the people who were on market for that spring market and just said, hey, we didn't get what we wanted, or it didn't work out. We're going to go ahead and pull it off market and wait for next year, or we're just going to stay here, or whatever it is. So what are your thoughts on that? Because we're definitely, I wouldn't say we're at a surplus of inventory, but it is definitely climbing from the post-COVID era where inventory was low.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree. I feel like we have an influx of inventory. But at the same time, I feel like buyers are buying with purpose, whereas maybe a few years ago, they were buying, interest rates were great. You know what I mean? And so I feel like the clientele is a lot more particular. I'm seeing a lot of people move from other states. My last 2 deals that I closed were people moving from another state to Birmingham. So I almost feel like the locals are just being particular. They might be waiting.
Yeah.
But that's just like what I'm seeing in my personal business and from speaking with other realtors as well.
Yeah, I would agree. It's really interesting, the surplus, the stuff, I'm seeing that even, I would say 6 months ago, I was saying, like, if you have a premium product, it's going to go quick.
Right.
Which I have a story to tell about here in a minute, which it does still do. But I'm even seeing some of the really nice stuff not move as quick.
Yes.
I was talking to an agent. There's a couple flippers we know who do a lot of inventory, and they kind of track with them, and some of their stuff, not all, but some of their stuff is sitting, which is not ordinary for those people. So retrospect, though, we'll see how it all pans out. But fresh off the press,
hopefully.
I actually just listed one of my own flips and got a contract within 2 hours. So
I love it.
Now it's got to close,
Yeah,
fingers
I know.
crossed.
And listen, we're just going to send all the good vibes for you guys and the buyer.
Yeah. I think it's going to go well, but all that to say is it's really interesting because we did price it more aggressively. And when I do flips, I really am very thorough in the prep of it. And I really try to leave no stone unturned.
Yes.
And I think through the filter, of like just the details and still miss some things sometimes, but for the most part, like make sure everything's really tidied up from lawn to, interiors to even like you'll paint the walls, and then sometimes some people just end up touching your walls. They're freshly painted walls. And you have to go back over those walls and either touch up the paint or like do a little magic eraser just to make it ready again. And sometimes people are like, oh, the walls were painted 2 weeks ago. Doesn't mean they're perfect, know? And so all that to say is, yes, we're seeing excessive inventory, but stuff is still moving. It's it's slower. And we'll look at days on market, which shows that. So solds, 9,339 in 2024, 8,926 in 2025. So listings are up.
Yeah.
And solds are down by 4.42%.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a believable number.
Rings true.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, and we're not seeing like, I think the thing is I've seen some Instagram, TikTok stuff saying the world is falling. I think sometimes fear mongering can get clicks.
It does.
These numbers say that things are slowing. That's all. They are not saying that.
They're not stopping.
Yeah,
they're just
things
slowing.
are stopping.
Yeah.
And if I look at previous, so June's numbers, listings were up 4.48%, and solds was actually positive by 0.79. So we are seeing a little bit of a decline, which is expected in the July. I think August might tick down a little bit, and then I typically like to see 3 months of data to say, yeah, we truly have slowed down.
Sure.
So I don't think we're in a crazy slowdown, but it definitely has ticked down. So,
I feel like I don't know if steady is the right word, but I would use the word steady for our market right now.
I think that's a good way. And, things on days on market, let's just jump to that. The medium days on market is in 2024 was 19. Now it's 26.
Okay.
And if you think about days on market, there was a time when you would put a house for sale and it wasn't sold in the first weekend.
Yeah,
there was
and
a time.
It was scary if it didn't sell that fast.
And so I think we're, like you said, we're back to we are gravitating towards what is a normal real estate market. And we saw such a crazy real estate market, probably a real estate market that no one will ever see in their lifetime.
I agree.
And that's like this whiplash. And so now we're in this slower market. What we're saying is slower, but it's probably
normal,
a little bit more of a normal, steady, ups and downs market.
Yeah.
And everybody's like freaking out. And it's like, no, COVID, you should have been more freaking out.
Yeah, and if I could add like something that I have just kind of absorbed from realtors who've been in the industry for 20 plus years is one, the interest rates that we're seeing is kind of normal.
Right.
It's not abnormal, but if you kind of think about it, the next generation of buyers, they were kids when I was a kid, when all of this happened. So not like the 2020 market, but I'm speaking in terms of prior. And so then when we saw 2020, all of those people became adults at that time, and now they're seeing it. So their introduction to the market was something that we, again, as you said, we probably won't see again.
Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting. And I think especially for realtors, like I became licensed in 21. However, I was raised by a realtor.
Yeah.
So for me, I had a different perspective than maybe somebody coming in who didn't have a relative that close to them in the industry. And so I think it's kind of a shock for people.
Right.
And I think that it can kind of scare them because they don't know that we're kind of just evening out.
Right. And I think, COVID, I think Birmingham overall was underpriced nationwide.
Yeah.
It was underpriced.
Yeah.
It was a better place to live. Now, I will say housing prices have made it difficult. That's the only thing that offsets with these interest rates.
It does.
Housing prices are making it difficult for some people with their income to own homes. And I get that. And I'm not saying that, everything's hunky-dory.
Sure.
But you're right. Like, the rates are not, they're not 18% like they were in the 80s.
Right. Exactly. Like, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse.
All right, so let's talk about medium sales price. In 2024, it was $379,900, and in 2025, we were at $385,000. So that's a 1.34% increase. So not a ton of appreciation we're seeing. The previous month, we were at 0.91. So we're going back to seeing kind of these
Yes.
these prices leveling out. We're not seeing significant jumps. And I think it comes back to the houses did shoot up a little bit, and it's compensating by making them more affordable because of rates. And then list to sold is 98.1% in 2024 and 98.24, so not much of a jump there. And then, like I said, we talked about medium days on market has jumped. Now, that is a 36% increase. I don't like looking percentage. I look more days on that from 19 to 26. So if I had to say moving into, because I have a crystal ball, I just don't tell everybody.
I know. We know. I know this about you because we're real estate besties. But the other people on your show, they didn't know
that's
that.
how I make so much money is my real estate ball.
Exactly. Your real estate ball.
Yeah, my real estate ball.
Yeah, his crystal ball. It's under the table.
Ball.
You wouldn't know, though.
If I had to project, and I'm curious as your projections, so if I had to project, I think August and September will be a little bit slower than we would like. And then typically winter is always.
Yeah.
And then I think that with the cycle, and I've heard of potential rate drops.
Heard that too.
We hear rumors. We'll see if it actually
we always
happens.
hear the rumors.
If those rate drops cycle in, I think December, January might actually pick up.
Yeah.
And hit harder, and then we'll have a really, I wouldn't say a resurging spring, just a strong spring.
Yeah, I can only hope. We can only hope. I don't really know. I don't really know how I feel about the market at the moment, and that's not a negative.
Yeah.
Don't know. It's just I want to reflect and kind of consider. I do think that if we see a drop in our interest rates, that we will definitely see that surge in the spring. I would say right now I have a listing. I've gotten like 10 showings in the last week, and it's been listed for a week. Still waiting on an offer, though.
Right.
So it's just interesting. But again, I'm seeing so many buyers that are just, and this is a great thing. This is not a negative, but just really particular in ways that I wasn't seeing, last year even.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say.
Yeah.
To give you an answer.
No, 100%. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
You don't have the crystal ball either. So.
Well, and you would think I would, but I don't, unfortunately.
You don't. It wasn't passed down from your dad.
And I should have a chat with him about that.
You should.
Yeah, I
You
should.
What's up with that, Dad?
I know.
All right, so let's break down some submarkets and then wrap up.
Cool.
Mountain Brook.
Mountain Brook. Show where you're from, Todd.
Yeah. Mountain Brook, Vestavia, and Homewood.
Okay.
Those kind of all ride in the same price bracket, roughly. Last year, we were 143 listings. This year, we're at 143.
Okay.
0% change, which is crazy. But solds went from 126 to 144. So there must have been some surplus inventory that hadn't moved. So their solds, which is kind of odd, is up 14%, which is kind of crazy.
Good for them, though.
Yeah. Medium sales price is up 7.23%. It's just a strong market.
Nice.
It's very hard to get in those pockets.
Well, the houses are so cool over there. I mean, I'm not even surprised.
Yeah, right. I think it's a competitive market in that, and it always will be.
Yeah.
And that just reflects, those prices. I've heard sometimes it's said that you actually buy in those pockets for what it will be worth in 5 years.
Fair.
You just kind of have to overpay, and
Fair.
that just keeps driving up prices. But the medium days on market, which is interesting, went from 3 to 7. So even in a high demand area, that solds is up and appreciation is up, days on market has increased.
I just think it's because people are taking their time.
They're taking more time.
I think because we're not in a competitive market, let's just call it what it is. We aren't really in a competitive market overall.
Yeah.
And I think people are just taking their time, which is good. This is good for the consumer because you never want a buyer to feel like they're being rushed or forced into a decision just because of competition. This is a huge asset, and you want the client to make the right choice. So I'm not going to say this is necessarily a bad thing. This could be good for just overall people's, mental health in general. That's just the way I see it.
It's such a significant decision.
It is.
When rates were so low, I had several buyers I worked with, and I had to have the conversation with him. I said, you need about $2,000 for inspections.
Right.
Because we're going to have to
Even though people
pay.
were waiving them.
They were waiving them. Well, we
so
would
crazy.
get day of inspections. We
Yeah.
would get a shorter, like just check the 5 major systems and give us a big overview.
Yep.
So we could put in a non-contingent on inspection offer.
Sure.
And I just told them, I was like, you're going to have to find the house that we really feel good about, and we're going to have to take a really big swing at from a price standpoint, and you're going to have to waive the inspection. And just expect that we're going to have to do that 2 or 3 times before we get a contract.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I remember working with buyers. Now this for me was in 2022, because again, I became licensed in 21. Yeah. And I remember working with buyers, and their budget, they couldn't really overshoot.
Right.
And I remember being fresh thinking, well, 20,000 would be great over. But where they were looking, it was like 50 to 70 over asking. And it was like, oh my God. And yes, waiving their contingencies too.
Yeah, you had to figure out, you're like, okay, Vestavia was, you had to go in about 40
they
to
were
50
looking in
over.
Hoover.
Yeah.
Even, even
crazy.
more. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
All right, so Hoover Trustville the listings are up 5.41%. So we're seeing an increase there, and solds are up as well, which is
That's great.
Counter to the market, because solds were negative in the overall market. And the medium sales price is up as well, 6.84%. But medium days on market, once again, 4 to 10. So even in a market where listings are up, solds are up, appreciation's up, still, like you said, they're taking their time.
And that's fine.
Okay. Pelham, Helena, Alabaster, we're looking at listings are up 7.45%. Solds are up 9.4%.
Awesome.
And then medium sales price is up 10.77%, which that's crazy to me. This market specifically has so much new inventory pop on market. It's really hard to gauge where that number is coming from. They could have had a surplus of new homes that brought that price way up.
We have to do a deep dive.
Yeah, we would have to deep dive on that. Days on market, though, only went from 14 to 15. So that's a little bit, like I said, I really don't, when I pull the stats from that pocket, when it goes, it'll just have fluky months. And that 10% appreciation surprises me. I think it would probably, in my opinion, be more in line with, it'd be hard to say. I think it probably true, if I had to guess, is more in the 5s, 4s, or 5s. And that's probably some new inventory hitting the market. And then Adamsville, Centerpoint, Roebuck, and Graysville, that is negative 5.47, which is odd for that pocket because it's been surplus of listings and down on solds.
Yeah, I'll tell you why in a minute.
The solds, though, is negative 23.66, which I have seen for a long time, that the solds of that market has not been strong for at least, I was tracking that market. I mean, I've been doing these market updates for, a long time.
Yeah.
And I was saying this last summer, that these pockets, now it's a pretty broad scope. Adamsville is one side.
Yeah.
I try to pull somewhat area and then somewhat price point that are similar price points. And so, but just broad strokes, we're down. We're down significantly, and that's been that way for a long time. I have listings that are sitting there. And the medium days on market went from 19 to 22. So not a crazy,
that's not too bad.
Not a crazy
That's not too bad.
there, but that 23%. So I'm curious as your opinion and insight on that pocket.
Well, so we've done a lot of business over there just being in the investment world, but I also live in the Huffman, Irondale, Trustwell area.
Yeah.
And what I think, this is a personal opinion, but I also do
Hot take.
track. Yeah.
Hot take.
Hello. It is a podcast after all. So I don't know. I think people got really excited because, again, I think we can always kind of take it back to a few years ago.
Right.
People saw the market, they were looking at the comps, they saw the sales, and they thought, hey, this is a great idea. We need to invest. It's time. And great in theory, but I think certain markets just are not as sustainable.
Right.
Certain areas, they have their moments where they get really hot and everyone wants them, and then suddenly it goes down. I have a house next door to me that was completely gutted. The investor, he's out of state. I met him. They completely gutted the inside. They made it look amazing. It has sat on the market since March.
Wow.
And I want to say they've had at least 1 or 2 contracts. I don't know what the problems are. I want to be nosy, but I've kind of tried to refrain. And then the house, like both people next door are selling.
Right.
And then the girl next to me, I've seen a lot of showings, but I don't think there's anything under contract. So again, I think it's like people think that it's like certain pockets they're taking and they're like, this is hot and we're going to get it. And then they're overpricing them and they're overshooting, and they're not, I think another thing is we're not seeing sellers drop their prices like they should.
Yeah.
And that is also keeping people on the market longer than they need to.
Well, and going back to the investor flipping side, I have seen a lot of poor comping, unfortunately,
taking
I
the
think,
highest comp they can find to justify.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking negatively about any specific, but
No,
there are
I am not either.
wholesalers. There are wholesalers, and there are other agents who, for their own benefit,
right,
they will say misinformation, and they may they may not pull comps correctly, or they may naive, and
or they
I
may
hate
do
to
it
say
too quickly, thinking they know.
I'm a pessimist. I am at the heart. I'm a pessimist, and so I've had several people say, "Hey, I want to make." I had one investor who called me, and they're like from overseas, and I was like, "Hey, I'd love to work with you. Whatever. What are your expectations?" And they said, "I want to make 30% on my flips." And I said, no one is making 30% on your flips. If anyone told you that they are, they're lying. They are lying. Yes. I said the average right now is 10 to 15% if you are doing well.
Right.
And they were shocked. And I was like, yeah, that is because labor's up. Materials are still not cheap. And to do it right, I guarantee you that house next to it is not done well. There's probably maybe foundation issues. Right. There maybe could have been replumbed. Like, you have to do it right. And
you do. You can't rush it.
I don't know for sure or not, but
me either.
All I know is I did a flip and it's under contract. I have a contract within 2 hours.
Right.
And that one's been sitting.
Yeah.
And
for months. Since March.
So now, granted, I got to close it, but you know what I mean. There's a difference.
But you also, so I think this is a great tip out there for those listening. You priced it right. You priced it competitively.
I did.
And that is what a lot of sellers or investors, they're not always listening. They want to go high, and when you're in a certain kind of market, you have to find that happy medium.
Yep. And part of it because they want to go high because they bought it poorly. I hate to say it. Yes. I hate to say it. And I joke, I do flips and I do investing, but I probably don't do the volume that I could because I like to be very safe. And I always say I can't bid against stupid. And there's always someone out there who's comped higher than they should, and they've under projected their expenses, and then they make an offer, and I can't beat that offer, and they end up with that's the ones who buy it and they sit with it, and so I just look for the ones that I don't have to bid against stupid.
You just have to be patient. If you're going to invest, you have to be patient. You can't just you can be aggressive, and you should be, but you can't just, the second someone folds, you can't just be like, yeah, this is it. Or, we'll pay $50,000 over. Like, $50,000 over is crazy because you could use that to put into the property. Yeah, you're upside down. You're upside down, like 100%.
Well, this has been insightful. It'll be interesting, like I said, as August, to see if my crystal ball does work. If it's broken, we'll have to bring in the crystal ball fixer. And go from there. But yeah, I think our market, I think the best takeaway is that we're in a steadying place.
Yep.
There's nothing to be freaked out about, but also don't overproject appreciation probably for the next year.
I agree with that 100%.
Good thoughts. Golden nuggets, as I like to say.
Yeah, drop your golden nuggets.
Well, I appreciate your time. As always, it's a great conversation, and hopefully we'll do another deal soon.
I hope so. Come on, man. It's been a minute.
I've got a listing you need to buy. So
Okay, I'll find somebody.
All right. Sounds good. Take it easy.
Cool. Thanks.